All right, 49ers update on this Thursday ahead of the game against the Washington Commanders. Again, no Jauan Jennings, so he's now missed the past 2 weeks of practice. He remains in the concussion protocol, and we're going to have a chance to ask Kyle Shanahan about his progress or lack thereof tomorrow, but I would say that it is concerning. Anytime that a player is dealing with a head injury, it is concerning, but the fact that Jauan Jennings still not back out of practice after suffering a concussion 2 weeks ago, I think is the leading item leaving today's session with the 49ers. They activated Danny Gray, or they didn't activate him. They opened up Danny Gray's practice window to open this week because they probably are going to need another receiver in the mix against the Washington Commanders. And Danny Gray's been healthy for a while, nearly 2 months, coming off the shoulder injury, but they just haven't had a spot for him to play, so they haven't opened up his practice window yet. Now the practice window's open. They can activate him from injured reserve at any time, and it looks like the 49ers may actually do that for this game against the Washington Commanders. More updates from practice today. No Eric Armstead, that's expected. He's dealing with that foot injury, plantar fasciitis. No Aaron Banks, dealing with the turf toe, so it's likely going to be John Feliciano replacing him. And of course, you've got Daron Payne and Jonathan Allen, the two big defensive tackles for the Washington Commanders. That's where it all starts. You ask anybody from Brock Purdy to George Kittle to Kyle Shanahan, the Commanders' defense starts with the two big DTs on the inside, and the 49ers may be without their best guard in Aaron Banks in this game. Probably will be as he deals with that turf toe injury. Jalen Moore, offensive tackle, the swing tackle, he remains out in the concussion protocol, so we'll probably see Matt Pryor, who the 49ers recently re-signed after a one-game hiatus, as the top swing tackle for this football team. That was practice today. No Jair Brown, too. I know I mentioned that a lot yesterday. So Jair Brown, he was working off on the side. He had a sleeve over his right leg. He was shooting hoops in the locker room, though, so maybe the knee sprain that Jair Brown suffered against Baltimore isn't all that severe, but I would not expect him to play against Washington, which means that the 49ers will move to their next option at safety with Tashaun Gibson and George Odom already down. That's the veteran Logan Ryan. Logan was actually working with the DB specialist today during the open portion of practice, wasn't doing any special team stuff as reserves normally do. He was out there with Jason Verrett, Diamara Lenore, Charvarius Ward, and Tashaun Gibson, which is a firm indicator that Logan Ryan is in the plans to start for the 49ers in this game. So we'll see what he has. I know the 49ers have been happy with Jair Brown, especially considering the fact that he's a rookie. He hasn't been perfect for this football team, but they definitely feel that he's evolving into the type of player that he's going to need to be in January and possibly beyond for the 49ers. However, if he's not available on Sunday, it's going to have to be Logan Ryan, with, interestingly enough, Isaiah Oliver being the next option for the 49ers at safety in case there's an injury there. Steve Wilks talked about that today. First off, he said that Logan Ryan was communicating really well in his first practice as the starting safety Wednesday. Fred Warner was talking about that coming off the field on Wednesday. And then on top of that, Steve Wilks talked about Isaiah Oliver taking a lot of safety reps at practice over the course of the past several weeks, maybe the past 2 or 3 weeks for Isaiah Oliver, taking those safety reps. We saw him play a few snaps at safety early on in Philadelphia at the start of December, right, when the 49ers saw Tashaun Gibson briefly exit the game with an injury. So the case here is that Isaiah Oliver, nickelback, started the season as the first stringer there, but has since been demoted because Diamara Lenore is taken over at that nickelback spot with Ambry Thomas sliding outside in passing situations. That means Isaiah Oliver is freed up to play some safety, drop back into coverage a little bit more. And, you know, you don't have to display as much change of direction, which is Isaiah Oliver's weakness as a bigger body at the safety position as you do at the nickelback position. So I think the 49ers might trust him in that spot, especially given the parameters of their scheme. Brock Purdy talked today. A lot of the talk about Brock Purdy has been ridiculous this week. He still is by a wide margin, the NFL leader in passing efficiency, atop all the passing statistics. Just because he had one bad game doesn't change any of that. That's how big of a lead he had. He'd have a few bad games and probably still be the leader. So people are just too reactionary in this league. They look at this on a week-to-week basis when it's not a week-to-week thing. Especially something like the MVP award is going to be a big picture thing. And I've talked about the big picture throughout. I've said if Purdy can maintain his efficiency. He's going to finish with a historically good season, and he's still on pace to finish with a historically good season, just across the 4,000-yard mark. I think Greg Cosell also had another great point, which adds further context to this whole discussion. Brock, I mean, you look at the interceptions this game, if those two batted balls hit the ground instead of ending up in the hands of Ravens defenders, which obviously was out of Brock Purdy's control, we're having a completely different discussion about his performance against the Ravens. They had 230 yards of total offense. They were very explosive, the 49ers were, against what might be the best defense in the league throughout the first half. So sometimes the ball just doesn't bounce your way, and you kind of get behind the game script. The 49ers obviously fell behind, and you get desperate, and you're not playing the type of football game that you wanted to play. And you just have to take a big, deep breath and say, we'll move on to the next one. And the 49ers have earned the right to be able to wash this game away because they built that big lead in the NFC, and they still have the number one seed even despite the loss. In fact, both Shanahan and Purdy have said that they're more disappointed, a lot more disappointed in what happened after the interceptions than the interceptions themselves. The first interception, we've talked about it ad nauseum. Purdy today said that he just was too aggressive. He was already in that gunslinger mentality after completing two big passes to Kittle, and he tried to force one in to Deebo Samuel for the touchdown, but Kyle Hamilton intercepted it. That should have been a check down from Brock Purdy. We get that. But then you had two batted picks and then one where Purdy got hit as he threw. Those, aren't garden variety terrible interceptions. Football happens sometimes. And both Purdy and Shanahan said, the thing that they regretted was, well, once we got behind, once those interceptions did in fact happen, even though they might have been bad luck, they wish that Purdy would have continued playing within the game plan, wouldn't have tried to force too many issues downfield. And it was tough at that point, but that's the learning lesson that Brock Purdy is taking from this football game. And obviously the 49ers still have full confidence in him. There's just a ton of noise out there. It's way, way too weakly and reactionary, all this MVP talk and all this quarterback talk. Brock Purdy's a really good quarterback. Christian McCaffrey called him one of the best players in the league, which I think is totally fair based on how Brock Purdy has produced this season. So that's the report from practice today. We had George Kittle talking too. I'm just taking a quick look at my notes to make sure that I covered everything for you. Kittle was also talking about his full belief in how that 49ers offense is churning. He actually remembered the Mud Bowl game from 2019 when the 49ers were playing in that downpour. They did the whole slip and slide stuff to celebrate against Washington. Kittle and Ross Dwelley, the 49ers tight end, who is trying to make a return this week, coming off the high ankle sprain. They watched the entire game tape yesterday of the 2019 49ers win in the Mud Bowl. I believe they won 9-0. I think it was a shutout. And Kittle just said, it's amazing how far our offense has evolved, come along since then. Obviously, you've got Purdy, but Christian McCaffrey, a lot of skill position weapons have taken, I think, steps. You have Brandon Ayuk now, didn't have him before. So keep it in perspective. 49ers team is still playing really well despite the one blemish against Baltimore.